Juniors are doomed, and this is good. LLMs hype, Copilot, and the turning point. Uh-oh. TLDR, get good or quit tech. This is going to be good. This is going to be good. So this article is by Kuberdenis. And the bar, if you haven't been around, if you're newer to trying to become a developer, the bar has risen a bit for junior developers. And it's tested some, to say the very least. So I think this is a good article to dive into. And if you watched any of my other videos, I've said similar things. And I'm going to dive into this. So let's jump into it. Junior engineering is hard. A junior engineer is a person who is just starting in tech, be it front end, back end, or operations. It is a person just starting out. How can you distinguish a junior engineer from a mid-level or a senior? Quite easily, actually. Here are the top 5 signs to catch a junior. Highly intensive desire to talk about tech. Irresistible need to express an opinion. Constant questions that can be Googled. Aggressive display of superiority over non-tech acquaintances. And constant, loud, never-ending, ear-numbing, complete and utter yapping. Damn, he's going hard. Oof. Yes, the junior engineer, an alpha specimen indeed. But what exactly are junior engineers doing in their daily work life? Well, this has been a hot topic since I have been in tech. Let's explore more by looking deeper into 3 categories: front end, back end, operations. Okay. Requirements for a junior front end engineer role. So my roles have mainly been around being a front end developer. I've held 3 developer positions, and all were mainly front end, with the 3rd position being full stack. Spent about 20% in the GraphQL layer on my 3rd position, but I'm primarily focused on front end. So let's see what he has to say. HTML, CSS, proficiency in HTML5 and CSS3, understanding of web standards, responsive design principles, JavaScript. So so far so good. Good knowledge of JavaScript, including DOM manipulation, JavaScript framework libraries such as React, Vue, Angular. Version control, familiarity with Git and GitHub or other version control systems. Web performance, we can kind of skip through these a little bit. Cross-browser compatibility. Debugging. API integration and build tools. Yes. All true. You need to know HTML and CSS. You need to know JavaScript. This is a primary thing. This is going to be what a lot of companies are going to dig deep on with you. But this is not being good with CSS is certainly keeping a lot of junior developers from being able to land their first position, and I'm especially talking about junior developers that will literally just lean on a CSS library to try to make everything look pretty, and you run them through CSS fundamentals and they flop. You need to know your way around a library like React. Probably just React. Not like React, just React. Git, SEO, and page speed insights. Tailwind, nope. Bootstrap, nope. Flexbox, yes. Grid, yes. Be able to write unit tests. I don't know. I think front end is moving a little bit more towards kind of like a behavioral or behavior-driven testing paradigm. React testing library has become pretty popular. There are other choices, but a lot of times front end is tested a little bit differently than back end, and it's more testing the behavior versus specific unit tests. I think front end cares less about that sort of test coverage. I think it's more testing behavior. REST, cores, data transformation, builders. Often you will also be required to understand UI UX principles. That can help. You will need to participate in Scrum and Agile rituals. You also find yourself bashing your head against technologies like Docker. Be required to at least once troubleshoot a CI/CD pipeline and GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps or GitLab, and worst of all, experience the absolute horror of rebase and merge. And I think it's easy as a front-end developer, at least I did, to shy away from some of this stuff. I felt like it was a nightmare when I was on call for my 3rd dev position, and I had this AWS dashboard, and I had to read through a bunch of logs and figure out who to contact for what, and try to debug stuff on my own. But, it was the time I was on call and having to dig into this, it was pretty uneventful, thankfully, but it was nerve-wracking a little bit to be on call. These are good things. I think every front-end developer is eventually going to get exposed to some of this stuff, and I think that's healthy. All of this while nobody takes you seriously because you are only doing front-end. You might have some arrogant back-end developers that believe that, but front-end has become so overly complicated that I think you kind of hold your own weight on the team with how much you need to know and how good of a software engineer you are to be able to manage the chaos that is the JavaScript ecosystem. Takeaway, being a front end sucks. So this person obviously does not enjoy front end. So I would disagree with that, but you got to honestly prioritize one. A lot of new people just want to become a developer. What the hell does that mean? Like, experiment, learn a bit of front end, learn a bit of back end, start specializing a little bit, and like really figure out like what kind of problems you want to solve, because these are very different positions. You are solving very different problems on the front end versus the back end. All right, requirements for back end, programming, database management, API development, version control, server management, ORM frameworks, security, testing, containerization. Again, you need to know a programming language. You need to be slightly proficient. The hell is this? Kuberdenis. Why even include this? Proficient in SQL and NoSQL, and defined slightly. I feel like this is no longer a requirement. I think this was temporary. And I think you having a lack of experience with dealing with a document model database, I don't think that's really going to hurt you unless, that company is using something like Mongo. You need to understand and be able to apply the concept of caching. Yep, that's a tricky thing. You need to understand the difference between REST and GraphQL. Yep. Git ORMs. What even is this? An ORM? Security. Yep. Security is the backend's responsibility for the most part. Yep. Testing, Docker, Kubernetes, Packer, and so on. Being a backend at least comes with bragging rights. So you can also lie to your friends that you are a hackser. Takeaway, being a backend still sucks, but it has perks. This person does not like front end. Opinion, too long, too lazy to explain. For operations, operation guys are cool, always have been, always will be. Are you Kuberdenis? Are you operations? Kuberdenis? I'm just taking a stab at this. We went over the roles. Now the question, will there be junior engineers in the future? No. Let me elaborate. All right, pack it up. You're done. Hard stance. I like hard stances if you have a good explanation. So let's see what Kuberdenis has to say. Evolution, dummy. Junior engineering has always been like this. A few years ago, you would have done perfectly fine with just a programming language and a library. What changed? Evolution happened, dummy. As with any other area of our lives, we evolved. A top performer will always inspire. Top performers through the years pushed harder and harder and left a mark with every push. We got inspired and we try to mirror their behavior, their achievements, and their success. Some of us could, others couldn't, but regardless of the outcome for each of us, we all collectively became better. We entered a new normal of knowing more, raising expectations, and accelerating our field. Sure, there has been a few cracks in the transmission, like the mass layoffs to COVID, but ultimately the machine is moving and is moving fast. Should you be scared? It depends. So far, I don't see the relevance of breaking down these three different paths. What is the relevance of this? Ain't no rest for the junior. So I feel like hopefully this is kind of the core message. There will not be junior engineers as the ones we are used to observing and meeting around us today. The junior engineers of the future will be all-around experts, a guild of generalists proficient in everything we are now struggling to get good at. Skill issues will not be in their dictionaries. Okay. This is hyperbolic just to be hyperbolic. I'd like to see some explanations. Claude, the hottest new guy on the block in ChatGPT, even though it's in its depressive phase lately, are the tools defining the reality of software engineering that is to come. The epitome of acceleration. LLMs are making learning faster, more action-based, and the dopamine reward of succeeding in doing simple tasks is hooking millions of people to code. This allows for a more rapid development of candidates and will also cut the unworthy. If you can't do a task, you're not supposed to be in tech. If you are scared of LLMs taking your job, you should find another job. The pressure will simply be too much for you to handle. With this, I close my article and express my greatest respects to 3 individuals: John McPhee, Terry Davis, and Alex Mahan. Peace. Okay. Well, I agree with the message of this article. It's probably one of the worst articles I've read all year. Very little explanation for anything. And I think it's more hyperbolic than anything. And it just seems like it's built to, I would argue, like, be a bit of a gatekeeper, which I think is healthy in some respect, to kind of show a standard to live to. But you didn't really define that standard really well. You're just like, things are going to be hard. Can't deal with it. Can't do the task. Give up. Right. And, LLMs are making learning faster, more action based. And I'm not really sure, like, the focus on learning. I don't think, okay, we got to break this down, because this is, I think, like, the message just fell short. I don't think you did a good job explaining anything, and I don't think you put any effort into it. So it's basically just fear mongering. And it's a garbage article for that. So I want to break down some of the things that I think will be helpful to understand. Let's start with this ending. There will not be junior engineers as the ones we are used to observing and meeting around us today. So one message was that I think the message was the bar is rising and you need to keep up with it, which is very true. And if that's not okay for you, then there are other avenues in tech. And just because, like, you think you're not up for the task of being a software engineer doesn't mean you don't have a place in tech, which is, this is just a garbage opinion here. If you are scared of LMs taking your job, you should find another job. Why? I think a lot of people are scared unnecessarily because, AI is new, and I think there's a lot of ignorance to how it's going to integrate. And, like, there is some unknowns with how AI is going to integrate into the software engineering field in general, but, like, again, no explanation whatsoever, which, again, just a garbage opinion. So LLMs, you kind of mentioned LLMs are making learning faster, more action-based, and the dopamine reward of succeeding and doing simple tasks. I don't think this is going to boost a rapid development of candidates that are actually going to make it to the finish line. And I would argue that if you are using LLMs to significantly increase your speed outside of well-developed courses to be able to grow as a developer, you're probably not growing as a developer. You're not very competitive. You're probably leaning too much on LLMs being able to solve problems for you. And, like, you're going to see incredible speeds at your perception of growth when you're not really growing, but you are producing a lot of code and projects. And that's going to be a false perception that you create for yourself. So this allows for a more rapid development of candidates and will also cut the unworthy. No, I think a lot of AI is going to create a lot of unworthy candidates. I think that's the truth. And I see it happening. And I see AI, creating complacency and atrophy in skills for a lot of professional software engineers. I think AI is doing harm as it's also doing good. I don't think this is true at all. Again, I'd love an explanation. Until then, it's a garbage opinion. Skill issues will not be in their dictionaries. Developers that are seniors have skill issues. I agree with one opinion here, a guild of generalists, proficient in everything we are now struggling to get good at. I do think that this is a tough one because I think we are going to eventually land in a space where full stack positions and generalist positions will start opening up to more junior people as they're more desired. But with this idea, what I see happening, especially among a lot of new developers, is they are creating too superficial of knowledge and they don't have enough depth in a lot of different areas that are important in dev positions. So yes, becoming a little bit more of a generalist will be helpful after you've gained depth of knowledge in front end, in back end. So people are taking this as just gain superficial knowledge, just being able to spin up an app, and that's not what this means. We're far, far, far away from being able to use superficial knowledge to being able to build scalable applications and giant teams and giant companies that bring in a hell of a lot of revenue. We are far, far away from that. And so I think eventually a good developer does become a little bit more of a generalist. You're going to see that more often among senior developers. And I think that's a natural transition over time. But how does this apply to junior developers? I don't think it does. And I think really specializing in one is going to be very time consuming in itself. And I don't really think this is helpful for junior developers. I don't think it really applies to them. Again, no reasoning, so another garbage opinion. I want to just touch on maybe a couple more things about this article, and I want to share my own opinion about this. So this is true. And I think a lot of junior developers need to be well aware that we are entering a new normal, and we always are, year after year, but the bar does rise. And I do think a lot of people are going to get weeded out because of that. But because they're sold a false vision of what it takes to become a software engineer, and that it's this, fast track to a much better life and way higher pay, where a lot of good software engineers give a shit about their craft and they want to become good software engineers. They're becoming engineers, not just app developers. So there is a new normal, and I think junior developers should be aware of that. So, the months that you thought would take to become a developer should be shifted into years. And if you're not ready for that, I wouldn't say maybe tech isn't for you. But maybe software engineering in general isn't for you. Maybe there are other areas of tech that you should explore and see if you enjoy. That's about it. So I think the intention with this article is garbage, and I think this article is garbage because of it, with a lack of explanations. And maybe Kuberdenis was just having fun, trying to trigger some developers. This is just my guess with the intention, but maybe Kuberdenis either likes to fuck with people and he doesn't really care to help people grow, or like me, he is tired of junior developers expecting to land that dev job with very little knowledge, and they are kind of just blaming employers aren't hiring junior developers when in reality their skills just suck, right? So Kuberdenis, if you're frustrated with that, and that's the motivation for this article, I'd highly recommend you to dive deeper into some of the points that you made, because I feel like you could have really good reasons. This article is just complete trash because you haven't really explained much, but your reasoning could be really good. And I personally would be interested in running through a much longer article where you elaborate on this stuff, because I think we might start agreeing on some of this. But as it stands, you're going to see articles, and junior developers are going to see articles like this. This is just fear mongering. It's useless. It's trash. You just discard it. It doesn't help you, right? You want to look for constructive articles that are going to help you. I think the most constructive piece of this really is hey, here's a bit of an outline. Okay, let's, go to Google and let's expand on this a bit and come up with a curriculum for ourselves. So now I can almost see the usefulness and the value of including some of these. But Here's my stance with junior developers. A lot of junior developers are going to get weeded out. A lot of junior developers are going to get weeded out. They were sold a false promise into software engineering, and they were sold a false perception, and it gains clicks and engagement. And, when one of my videos pisses you off, right, and says like, hey, you suck as a developer, spend more years trying to become a better developer if you want a job, that's really rough to hear. And so you dip from one of my videos, you leave a comment trying to tell me how evil I am, or how I just don't know what I'm talking about, or, just calling something out in the video. And then you go to a video that makes you feel comfy and cozy and nice, and makes you feel like, oh, you know what? No, I'm actually closer. This person's just a little bit more optimistic, right? Some developers on YouTube, they just want to gatekeep. They just want to tell me that I don't belong, and they probably are afraid of losing their job, and, just trash opinions like that. But you'll find videos that are overly optimistic, that are not based in reality, that, you can get a job. Like, most people can get a job if they just do the right things in 6 months, and it's no problem. All these other people are fear mongering and gatekeeping. No, this shit is fucking hard. The market is really oversaturated, and junior developers, you have to try significantly harder than even I did when I was trying to become a developer. But the problem is, and I see this, I've mentored so many software engineers. I've lost count at this point. There's no way I'm going to be able to go back and count it. But I've been doing this. I've been mentoring junior developers for a good 7 years now. The problem I see is, even at the stage that I was at, the knowledge that I had when I became a developer, way more junior developers are below that stage now, which blows my fucking mind. I know everyone has a preference for the content creators they watch, but I would caution you that someone like Kuberdenis, if they would just elaborate on some of their opinions, is someone that you should have in your list of videos to watch and blog articles to read and follow on Twitter, to balance out so much bullshit that is being sold to you, so that you sign up for courses, so that you engage with content. Content creators gain ad revenue that make you feel cozy and comfy, and you are almost there, when in reality, I've seen this among so many developers, you guys are so far away from landing that dev job. And all you need to do is lengthen that journey, financially prepare yourselves for a much lengthier journey, and you can eventually get to that finish line. But that's the problem. It's like, yes, you junior developers do have it harder, but you are worse than I was, way worse, when I was becoming a developer. And I don't know who is training you to be this bad. I don't. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of content creators, so you might have your preferred one, but man, a lot of junior developers they need to spend a lot more time diving into more complex projects, solving harder problems, building projects, not just grinding leak code all day, like building projects, solving real problems, fleshing out real professional looking projects that kind of mimic the industry that you're going to be diving into, that you're solving problems that are relatable, and even the implementations are probably going to be common in some of the larger code bases that you might work in. You're solving harder problems and harder problems, and challenging yourself to just constantly build something way more complex and better. And a lot of you aren't doing that. You're just not doing that. And I would love to hear why you're not doing that. I would love to hear why you have a graveyard of projects. I'd love to hear why you continue to just build tutorial-based projects, or you just build clones, or you still just build cat galleries, or like you don't build anything meaningful. Like, when a lot of us got into software engineering, we were building shit that mattered to us. And that's the key. It's like, build something that's useful for you and then expand it. Let users use it. Why are you building shit no one will ever use, no one will ever care about? I think it's okay to build stuff to reinforce concepts that are clones and stuff like that. But you have to truly understand those are worthless projects on a portfolio. What are you building that's a real professional project that will make you stand out? What are you doing to flesh out something like that, to challenge yourself like that? Because so many of you aren't doing that. And of course, there are exceptions to this. Maybe you are putting in your full effort and you are ready to go the full length to actually land that position. And so maybe this doesn't apply to you, but I do see a mindset of junior developers that is completely broken and weak. It's a weak mindset that is going to hold you back from being self-critical enough to challenge yourself for the next 2 to 3 years, really building yourself up as a competitive developer, someone that dives deeper and deeper into problems and constantly questions why and figures this stuff out and goes past the abstractions and digs a bit deeper. Like, that's the kind of developer that companies need right now and probably the near future. And you honestly need to question whether you are that type of developer, whether you really give a shit about this craft, whether you really care about being a good software developer, or you just want to do the minimum possible. Because if you just want to do the minimum possible, this is one thing Dennis and I would agree with. You don't just not belong in software engineering. You don't belong in tech at all. There are a lot of brilliant people in tech that are constantly challenging themselves to do better, not do the minimum possible, to actually do better for themselves, to build a better version of themselves, to become smarter, more intelligent, dive deeper and deeper and deeper into tech. This is never ending. And if you are not that person, now all of a sudden, this becomes very true. So you have to question, for yourself. Are you the type of person that's ready to spend years becoming a software engineer? If not, maybe find something that's better suited for you.